Hi, Kennedy. I got your email about trying to build this guy, and you're kind of trying to find a way to get this rope texture patterned around the outside of your candle form. And you'd mentioned you had tried building it a couple different ways. One with a helix. Oh, and SolidWorks crashed. Cool. Once with a helix and once with a projected curve. And I think you're trying to use that curve, whether it's a helix or a projected curve, to then sweep like a rope surface up the side of your candle. So I think that either way will work. And I'm gonna try to. I think I'm gonna try the helix version to see if I can't get this one to work first. All right, so helixes can be a little bit tricky to set up because I guess they're not exactly intuitive. So in order to make a helix, you need a circle profile and you need a central axis. And it looks like you actually kind of already have both. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna leave this thing here for now and just start building a new helix. I'm going to create a sketch and convert this original circle that you have, just so that I don't accidentally consume your original master sketch. So that's one thing we need. And I guess we do have this guy here. I'm going to convert that as well on its own sketch. And now I'm going to go to insert a curve, a helix, and we need our circle. Oh, and it already kind of figured out where we want it to go. We don't really need that central axis. Okay, so you can kind of see how this is going to make a curve that we can sweep. We can adjust a few things here, like how many revolutions this goes, and we can always make it go a little bit farther than we need so that we can trim it later. I think probably we don't need quite as many revolutions to match your design, but we probably do need more pitch. Like we want this thing to kind of go up pretty extreme. There we go. And so you can kind of just mess around with this until you get it close. And again, it's okay to make it a little bit bigger because we're probably going to trim things later. All right, so that's probably good. I'm just going to start with that. So there's my helix. I am going to go back and delete that vertical line sketch because we don't need it. All right, so there's one helix. Now we need to thicken this thing up to turn it into a surface. Now I believe normally we would want to create a plane on the end of this, make our rope profile, and then we can make a sweep. I kind of think we can, yeah, with the new surface sweep thing, we can say, yeah, we just want a circular profile. We don't actually have to make that sketch with the circle. We can just pick circular profile. How big? Probably not more than 2 millimeters or so to get your intended design. Maybe I'll get it 2.5. And okay, so I picked my. Let's go back over that one more time. So I have my helix. I'm going to go to swept surface. Instead of picking a profile like the thickness of the rope, I'm going to say circular profile, and then what path do I want it to follow? I'm going to pick the helix. There we go. Change the size of that circular profile. I'm just going to take a look at some of these other things. So I'm going to say okay. There's my helix. Now I'm pretty sure we want the top and bottom of this helix to kind of end with the candle. Let me go back to your design really quick. Well, it looks like you have these kind of disappearing into the candle. Maybe we'll kind of chop them at the top and bottom of the candle instead, just so you can have an idea of what this might look like. All right, so I'm going to start by probably moving this thing down a little bit, so it kind of ends and starts above the top of my candle and ends below my candle. I don't need to copy it. I just moved it down a little bit, and you can see it's below my helix. I believe if I change my helix, this should still change. So let me just save this really quick. All right, next thing I'm gonna do is like trim the top and bottom of this helix probably, and I can do that with a sketch on probably like the front plane. Let me just make a sketch. I'm going to convert like the top and the bottom of your candle and probably just like extend these out so it goes all the way through my surface. Okay, I'm going to use this sketch to cut the top and bottom of this like swept rope form. So I can get out of the sketch, go to surfaces, and do trim surface. I'm going to do a standard trim because I'm using, for my trim tool, I'm going to use a sketch. And now, do I want to keep or remove sections? I can remove the top and bottom of this thing, or I could say keep the middle. Either way it works. I'm going to say okay. All right, so that, see how it's kind of like trimmed. That's good. I think the next thing I'm going to do, we are building this as a surface. We could have done this as a solid, and I wouldn't have to like cap these ends, but that's fine. To cap these ends, I'll probably just say create a planar surface, pick that circle. It looks like it gets it the first try. And I'll do the same thing, create a planar surface, pick that circular edge. Now we're capped, and I'm going to knit those things together. For now, I could create a solid, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to leave it as a knit surface because we might do some other things with this surface. Okay, the next thing we're going to want to do is, now this guy, it looks like you have this pattern, you made a section of it because it looks like you were going to pattern this around, and that's a really good way to do it. I think I'm going to try something a little bit different, because really the rope is what we want to pattern. This section is probably going to be the same everywhere, like this portion of the candle. So your main candle, I'm just going to adjust and say go all the way around. I hope that doesn't screw everything else up. Now it's fine. All right, see how our rope is kind of like involved right there. Okay. All right. The next thing, so I might actually, I'm gonna get rid of these surface planes for now. Remember those two surfaces I used to cap the top and bottom of my rope? I'm just going to get rid of all of those right now because I think we can do that at a later time. So let me just delete everything. And let's see, my surface trim. All right, so I'm getting a few errors because I revolved this candle all the way around. So you might have to go back and clean some of that up. Like there are a few references that don't really exist anymore in the same way. I want this. These guys should line up. Okay. That's probably all that was. Some of these other references. You know, it doesn't really matter because we're not going to use that sketch anymore anyway. So I'm just going to leave it for now. All right, so we're getting there. Okay, another thing we're going to do is this thing. I think in order to get the ropes to go both ways, there are a couple things we could do. All right, one thing we might start with is I'm going to go to direct editing, and I'm going to do a circular pattern around this central axis. What do I want to pattern? I want to pattern bodies. I want to pattern this body specifically a certain number of times. I don't know, maybe it's 4 times. Maybe that's enough. I'm going to say okay. I'm patterning the body and not the surface, not like the surface feature itself, because the body had our like top and bottom trims and everything's kind of the way we like. All right, the next thing I'm going to do, I I think probably the next thing I'm going to do is mirror those things. So I'm going to pick a mirror plane that cuts my candle in half, and I'm going to mirror bodies, these four surfaces. And now we've got our like fishnet pattern. Okay. The last thing we're gonna do is like combine all of this stuff so that it's one solid. And there are a couple different ways we could do that. One would be, actually, it's funny how this turned out. We probably could have built this entire thing as a solid as opposed to a surface. And in which case we could just combine everything at the end and it would stay solid. Because we built this as a surface, because it's sort of a practice for us to do surfacing, there are probably a couple things we have to do. We're going to have to do this in a couple steps. So I'm going to hide the inside, and we're going to start combining these things together. So I'm going to do a mutual trim with all of these surfaces. I'm going to pick everything. Okay. And what sections do I want to keep? It's probably going to be easiest for me to keep sections. I'm going to keep basically everything that's visible and delete all of those parts on the inside. I wonder... Oh, you know what? That's not going to work. Let's clear that. I need to like get rid of the like little intersection points on the inside here. It's gonna kind of be annoying. Actually, all right, we're gonna try something else. First, we're gonna try a different trim. We're going to do a standard trim. We're gonna use this big box as my trim tool, and I'm going to keep the outside of all of these ropes. So we're kind of like deleting the inside of all the ropes. All right, that was all of them. Okay. So if I hide this, yeah, see how you kind of cut those apart? Now I can do a mutual trim with all of these surfaces and start removing all of these interior pieces. Like I don't need, oh man. Man, it must, I wonder why it's not letting me remove just that part right there. Thought it probably would, but it looks like it's not going to. Well, sometimes things don't work the first time. Alright, so I'm gonna renege on all of that stuff. Let's get rid of the surface things. Why don't we just go back before our pattern? I'm going to cap the top and bottom of this again with a planar surface. I'm going to knit this together. Make sure I pick all three surfaces and turn this into a solid at this point. So now I have a solid here. Now my pattern, we'll see if it gets it. No, we're going to have to edit the pattern and say the body we want to pattern is that new solid body. The mirror, we're going to have to edit also and say, just like repick these new solids. Okay. And then the main candle, which is still a surface at this point, we should be able to create a solid. Oh, let's try as a thicken because it's already like knit together. we're going to create a solid from enclosed volume. There we go. And because when we did the thicken, like the merge result checkbox was checked, it merged with all of our other stuff. So now this is all one solid, and I think it's pretty close to your design intent. If you wanted to, I guess, like get rid of some of these edges, you could try a couple things. You might even be able to do it with just like a simple fillet. Let's try small fillet on like all of these edges. I wonder. Yeah, you might have to go around and pick them. Let's just try. Like, yeah, that kind of like ends a little bit nicer. Okay, so I hope that's helpful and gets you a little bit closer to designing this thing. I'm going to go ahead and save this part.